You're listening to Tongue of the Serpent, where every debt is written in echo, and even silence has a price. Tonight, the crew of the Morning Star holds its breath. Lucian Devereaux wakes to the hum of something stirring below, an old door, nailed shut, beginning to sing again. Through that door steps a ghost with a heartbeat, Silas Piper, missing, presumed dead, and carrying the sound of madness still ringing in his bones. When the bells call a man back from the dark, it's never mercy, it's rehearsal. This is Season 2, Episode 5, The Prodigal Son Returns. The stirring below. Lucian Devereaux dozed fitfully in his armchair, a leather-bound volume balanced on his chest, his fingers still loosely curled around its spine. The low amber glow from the bedside lamp carved shadows across the room, pooling in corners and stretching into strange shapes against the faded wallpaper. Somewhere outside, the hum of a passing car blended with the distant murmur of Bourbon Street, muffled and subdued at this late hour. An antique clock on the mantel ticked with relentless precision, each second driving deeper into the quiet like a knife. Lucian stirred, his dreams tangled and fleeting, leaving behind the faint residue of unease. His mind hovered on the brink of wakefulness, caught between sleep and the creeping certainty that something wasn't right. His senses, honed over countless decades, whispered caution. One pale hand slipped from the arm of the chair, his fingertips brushing the floor as if testing for tremors. At first, he thought it was nothing more than the city's natural rhythm, a train rolling through the bywater, or a distant bass line from a late-night party. But no, it was too regular, too deliberate. A low, resonant hum began to seep up through the floorboards, pulsating in time with the heartbeat. Lucian's eyes snapped open, keen and cold as blue glass. He straightened, the book thudding to the floor as he sat up, spine stiff as if bracing for impact. The vibration intensified, a strange and hungry sound that resonated in his bones, almost melodic, but with a disharmony that grated at the edges of his mind. A heartbeat made of sound, too organic, too alive. Lucian rose slowly, pushing down the flicker of something that felt disturbingly like fear. It had been a long time since anything had managed to truly unsettle him. Silence fell like a shroud. The hum tapered off, leaving a hollow ache in the space it left behind. Lucian moved toward the door, careful to avoid the creaky board in front of his wardrobe, his footfalls almost inaudible against the faded Persian rug. He paused at the threshold, head cocked like a wary animal, listening. Nothing but the soft tick of the clock, and yet something in the air had changed, thicker, heavier, as if the shop itself were holding its breath. Lucian hesitated for just a moment longer before stepping into the hall, slipping soundlessly down the narrow staircase, his instincts thrumming with cautious urgency. He could feel it now, a tangible pull from below, like something ancient and half-forgotten had stirred awake. The shop was waiting, silent and tense, the remnants of that hum still vibrating faintly in the shelves and trinkets. Lucian narrowed his eyes, his mouth set in a grim line. Whatever was happening, it wasn't good. And in the crew of the Morning Star, anything unusual was usually a harbinger of worse to come. Lucian Devereaux walked down the stairs with careful precision, his footsteps so light they barely whispered against the wooden treads. The air grew colder as he descended, thickening with the metallic tang of ozone. He paused at the bottom step, his gaze sweeping the shop floor, but nothing seemed out of place. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through the lace curtains, and the shelves stood sentinel, crammed with their peculiar and often cursed contents. The door that shouldn't open. Then he saw it, a faint shimmering glow leaking from the doorway to the back room. The storage door, old and heavy, with layers of cracked green paint, hung slightly ajar. Lucian's eyes narrowed. That door hadn't been opened in years. He'd practically nailed it shut after Silas had disappeared through the portal. The low, resonant hum was stronger here, vibrating through the air with a rhythmic pulse that seemed almost melodic. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, like some ancient chant resonating through the bones of the shop. Lucian hesitated, every instinct warning him to stay back, to wait and watch, rather than rush into whatever bizarre phenomenon had breached his sanctuary. He edged closer, keeping his movements deliberate and quiet. From this angle, he could see the glow growing stronger, light spilling from the edges of the doorframe like molten gold. The portal, once a ragged tear in reality, was no longer chaotic and fractured. Instead, it pulsed with a strange energy, its surface rippling like liquid gold. He didn't dare step closer, his mind flexing at his side as he fought the urge to reach for one of the warding charms tucked under the counter. Just as his mind raced through possibilities, was it reopening on its own? Was something coming through? A dark silhouette appeared at the threshold. A figure stumbled forward, limbs loose and uncoordinated, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The man hit the ground hard, sprawling face down on the dusty floor. Lucian didn't move, his instincts urging caution. The portal shimmered one last time, then snapped shut with a final discordant hum that reverberated through the shelves. Silence fell, thick and heavy. Lucian waited a beat longer before moving forward, squinting through the gloom. The figure on the floor groaned, and as Lucian knelt cautiously, recognition struck him like a slap. Silas Piper, or at least what remained of him. His hair was longer, tangled and matted with dirt and dried blood. His clothes were tattered, hanging off of his frame like remnants of a forgotten life. Bruises and scars marred his exposed skin, and his eyes, when they finally opened, glowed faintly with a strange, unnatural light. Lucian's lips parted in stunned disbelief. He had long since resigned himself to the idea that Silas was dead, lost to the hungry bells, or worse. Yet here he was, sprawled on the floor, breathing in shallow, ragged gasps, very much alive. The return of Silas Piper. Silas looked up, his face a tapestry of exhaustion and triumph, grinning like a man who's either cheated death or invited it over for drinks. Lucian didn't bother masking his irritation as he grabbed the other man by the collar and hauled him upright.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
Lucian growled, giving him a rough shake for good measure.
Coming through my shop like a stray cat that has forgotten its own name. You're lucky I didn't shoot you on sight.
Silas sagged against him, too weak to do more than chuckle. The sound ragged and raw as sandpaper. His skin was unnaturally pale, thin as old parchment, and streaked with lines of luminescent ink that coiled and pulsed like restless serpents beneath the surface. The tattoos were new, or maybe they'd always been there, hidden, waiting to crawl to the surface. They flickered with an unsettling rhythm, in tune with the last remnants of the portal's hum.
Missed me?
Silas rasped, that damned grin still in place, even as his legs threatened to give out from under him. Lucian hesitated, his grip loosening just enough to keep Silas upright. There was something different about him. More than just the gauntness, more than the madness dancing in his eyes. Something in the way he moved, like a man unmoored from his own skin. Relief warred with suspicion, and Lucian found himself staring longer than he meant to, trying to piece together how the hell this half-dead ghost of a man had clawed his way back.
Idiot.
Lucian muttered, half under his breath, before maneuvering Silas to the old armchair near the counter. Silas collapsed into it with a graceless thud, slumping against the cracked leather like he belonged there. Lucian poured a generous measure of whiskey from the decanter and pressed it into Silas's trembling hand.
Drink,
Lucian ordered, keeping his tone gruff, like he didn't care whether the man survived the next minute or not.
You look like you've been dragged through hell backwards.
Silas took a shaky sip, his eyes slipping shut for a moment, as if the burn of the liquor reminded him he was still tethered to this plane. A final chime rang out from the back room, low and resonant, and the portal flickered one last time before snuffing itself out like a candle drowned in wax. The shop returned to stillness, shadows settling into familiar corners, and Lucian stood there, caught between cursing Silas and dragging him back through the portal to toss him into whatever hell he'd just crawled out of. Instead, Lucian folded his arms, leaning against the counter, and waited for the story to crawl free from Silas's cracked lips. Ghosts and whiskey. Silas took another sip of whiskey, the amber liquid pooling warmth in his throat, though it did nothing to quiet the hum just beneath his skin. The tattoos glowed faintly, casting strange shadows on his hollowed cheeks. Lucian remained by the counter, his eyes sharp as glass, waiting. The silence hung heavy between them, ancient, stubborn, and unyielding.
You're not dead,
Lucian said finally. It wasn't a question. It was more of an accusation, really. Silas barked a laugh, raw and cracked.
Ha! Feels like I should be.
He replied, rolling the glass between his hands.
You ever dream about drowning? That suffocating weight and the way sound distorts underwater? Thick, gelatinous. That's how it was. Except I wasn't underwater. I was somewhere else.
Lucian raised an eyebrow.
Somewhere else.
Silas's grin faltered just for a bit, and he stared into the drink like it held the secrets of the universe.
When the bells took me, I thought I'd just fall through, hit the ground on the other side, and either die or get up and brush myself off. I wasn't prepared for that world. Sound and space were twisted. It wasn't like being inside a bell. It was like being swallowed by it.
He took a breath, a glow along his arms dimming as he collected his thoughts.
Everything moved, like sound itself was a creature, writhing and curling through the air, waves crashing into each other, smashing reality into fragments. Sometimes the ground was there, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes I had a body, and sometimes I was just vibration. I lost track of time, hours, years, felt like both and neither.
Lucian kept his face neutral, though his fingers tightened around the edge of the counter.
And yet you're sitting here.
I fought.
Silas said, something fierce and wild slipping into his tone.
At first, I couldn't make sense of it. Tried to walk, tried to breathe, tried to find something solid. But the bells didn't care. They played with me. Their voices slammed into me like hammers. I was a prisoner, a bit of meat caught in a tide of noise. I wanted to scream, but the sound just twisted back into me, like it was eating itself.
His eyes glinted with something feverish.
But I learned. You know how some songs make your bones hum? How a melody can crawl under your skin and settle there? I started moving with it, mimicking the rhythm, letting it crawl into my bones instead of breaking them. I danced with it, matched my breath to the pulse, let it move through me without fighting back. And once I learned to bend the rhythm, it stopped hurting. The bells noticed. I could feel them, like 1,000 curious eyes watching me dance with the madness. And they approved.
Lucian frowned.
Approved.
Silas grinned, the ink on his skin flaring like fireflies caught in a glass jar.
They didn't torment me after that, didn't crush me down. Sometimes they'd let me rest, if you could call it that. It was never quiet, but it was softer. I kept bending their sound, and they kept changing the rhythm, like a game. Eventually, they got bored, I think. One day, after what felt like centuries of that strange dance, they just stopped. The bells chimed all at once, low, resonant, like a farewell. And a door appeared, just like that.
He glanced at the now dark back room, as if half expecting the portal to snap open again and drag him back.
I didn't wait for them to change their minds. Stepped through without thinking, and here I am.
Lucian stayed quiet, letting the story settle. He'd heard his share of tales from beyond, strange realms where reality warps and breathes like a living thing. And yet, this was different. He couldn't help but feel a strange, grudging respect that Silas had not only survived, but somehow bent the bells to his will.
You're a damned fool.
Lucian muttered, but the edge had softened just a fraction.
But it seems death's not quite ready to claim you yet.
Silas's grin softened, the glow of his tattoos finally dimming to a faint shimmer.
Neither are the bells,
he whispered half to himself.
but I've got a feeling they'll be calling again someday.
Lucian didn't bother with a reply. Instead, he refilled Silas's glass, figuring it was the least he could do for a man who danced with madness and lived to tell the tale. A man changed. Lucian didn't miss it. The way Silas's voice carried that eerie harmonic undertone, like two voices speaking at once, perfectly synchronized and unnervingly inhuman. Every word seemed to pluck invisible strings, and Lucian could feel it, the faint vibration in his chest, like the resonance of a struck tuning fork. Even the room seemed to sense it. The glass bottles on the shelves gave the barest hint of a hum, sympathetic vibrations shivering through the air. Lucian's eyes narrowed as he watched Silas absently tap his fingers against the armrest of the worn-out chair. The rhythm was nothing special, just a casual, lazy pattern drumming out of muscle memory. But every bottle on the nearest shelf quivered in unison, a discordant harmony that made Lucian's teeth ache.
Do you mind?
Lucian snapped, sharper than he'd intended. Silas froze mid-tap and glanced up, his grin going lopsided.
Sorry.
He muttered as he stopped tapping. Lucian didn't respond, but his mind raced. He'd seen enough strangeness in his time to know that nothing came back from the other side unchanged. Silas might be here, flesh and blood and reckless grin, but he was different now. Altered, and whatever the bells had done to him, it was seeping into the shop, infecting it with that low, thrumming hum that wouldn't quite die away. He couldn't shake the feeling that Silas had brought something back, something that couldn't be seen or touched, but lingered in the cracks of the floorboard and the fine dust on the shelves. It made Lucian's spine crawl.
Tell me.
Lucian said carefully, pouring himself a measure of whiskey to steel his nerves.
Are you entirely yourself?
Silas shrugged, stretching his legs out as if he owned the place.
That's a complicated question, isn't it? I'm still Silas, but I guess I'm not just Silas anymore. The bells, well, they didn't just let me walk away for nothing.
Lucian's jaw tightened.
What did you trade?
Silas's smile didn't reach his eyes.
Myself, I suppose. They didn't teach me their song. They made me part of it. I had to hum to their rhythm, dance to their beat. If I fall out of sync, I'm pretty sure they'll drag me back. Or worse. Relax.
Lucian didn't like the way the air felt heavier now, thick and taut, as if waiting for something to snap.
So, you're saying you're a walking invitation for them to break through again?
Silas waved a dismissive hand.
I've got it handled. Besides, they let me go, didn't they?
They let you go because they're not done with you.
Lucian said, his voice low and tense.
And I'm not in the habit of letting Eldritch horrors set up shop here.
Silas gave a soft chuckle, leaning back unconcerned.
Let them come. I've already faced them and came out breathing. What's one more risk?
Lucian shot him a hard, warning look.
If they come through because of you, I'll make sure you never dance again.
Silas just laughed, tapping his fingers against the armrest once more, sending that strange, unsettling vibration through the room. Lucian didn't relax. He knew trouble when he saw it, and Silas had returned carrying more than his own skin. The hungry bells had marked him, and whether Silas wanted to admit it or not, they hadn't done playing with their favorite toy. The debt yet unpaid. Silas finally stopped talking, his words trailing off into a breathless murmur before sleep claimed him. His head lolled back against the warm armchair, and his body went slack, as if surrendering to exhaustion and gravity all at once. Lucian stayed where he was, perched on the edge of his own seat, watching Silas's chest rise and fall with a steady rhythm. Even asleep, Silas's fingers twitched faintly, as if caught in the memory of some impossible melody. The shop was quiet again, but it wasn't the familiar kind of quiet. The comforting silence of ancient wood and dusty artifacts resting in the dark. This quiet had an edge to it, sharp and tense, like the pause before a discordant chord resolved itself. Lucian glanced toward the back room, where the portal had been, a door to somewhere that didn't understand the concept of mercy or sanity. There was nothing left of it now. No glow, no hum, not even the echo of sound that had twisted the air into knots. But something still felt off, like the shop itself had taken a deep breath and was holding it, waiting for a sign that it was safe to exhale. Lucian frowned, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the shadows. He didn't trust any of it. Silas might be back, alive and smirking and full of half-truths, but that didn't mean that the hungry bells had truly let him go. He wondered, not for the first time, if the bells weren't simply patient, content to let Silas think he'd escaped, while they quietly, methodically worked their way through the cracks he'd left behind. Maybe they'd come crawling through the air itself, weaving their way into reality strand by strand until the whole city hummed with their song. Maybe Silas was just the first note in a symphony, too vast and cruel to comprehend. Lucian shook his head, dismissing the thought as paranoia, though he knew better than most that paranoia had its uses. He leaned back, still clutching his whiskey, and tried to let the tension bleed out of his shoulders. Across from him, Silas snored softly, oblivious to Lucian's scrutiny. The first pale light of dawn stretched its fingers through the cracked windows, and Lucian sighed, feeling the weight of the night settle into his bones, just as he allowed himself the luxury of a sip of whiskey. A faint chime drifted through the room, a single haunting note that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It wasn't loud, just a whisper of sound hanging on the edge of perception. Lucian stiffened, eyes darting to the back room, but there was nothing. No light, no vibration, just the empty silence reclaiming its territory. He turned his gaze back to Silas, who hadn't moved, still deep in the sleep of the restless and the damned.
Fool.
Lucian muttered under his breath, though he wasn't sure whether he meant Silas or himself. He drained the whiskey in one swallow and leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the fading shadows. Whatever Silas Piper had brought back with him, it wasn't done. The hungry bells didn't give without taking, and Lucien had a creeping suspicion that the debt was still unpaid. He settled in, keeping watch as the light stretched longer and brighter, the day pressing in to reclaim the shop from the lingering taste of nightmare. But that faint chime remained, threading itself through the morning air, reminding Lucien that some doors, once opened, never really close. Morning creeps through the cracked windows, washing the shop in pale gold and uneasy quiet. Silas sleeps. The bells do not. Somewhere beneath the city, something hums, soft, patient, listening. Lucien knows what every magician, sinner, and fool learns in time. The dead never come back alone, and every return carries the shape of what was left behind. You've been listening to Tongue of the Serpent, stories from the haunted heart of New Orleans, where resurrection is never redemption, and the music beneath the cobblestones never really stops. If the chime still echoes after the episode ends, don't be afraid. Just remember, the bells always find their song.